Bark Baskets, but first I want to give you guys a little bit of a history lesson. So, maybe. Okay, so a little bit about the history and background of the first people who were creating the Birch Bark Baskets. So the history is, it started with the Ojibwe people. They were the first people notably to make birch bark baskets and to do a lot of different things with them. As you can see, they would make wigwams, which was their homes. They would make containers for cooking and gathering water, and they also made canoes and a bunch of other really cool things with them. There's natural waxes in the birch bark that actually makes it waterproof, and when it's properly prepared, it can even be fire resistant. So this was a huge asset to them. The best time to gather it is in late June or early July, right around the same time when it's maple sap season. So that's the best time to get the bark off of the trees. So some of the local history connected to kind of this area. So in 1800 there was the Battle of Cross Lake. So if you guys know where the wharf is at, which is one of our favorite restaurants, that was actually where the Ojibwe people were camping for the night when they were attacked by over 300 Dakota men. They actually saw them coming across the lake and sent out a man to go look at it because it looked like a pack of wolves, and it was actually a bunch of Dakota men who were disguised as wolves. They had taken wolf pelts and put them over their faces and were walking on their hands and knees to ambush and attack the Ojibwe people. There were 200 men and women there, and all were killed but 7 men and 3 children. So this is a little bit of current or local history in our area that kind of connects us to these people. So the tradition is, like I said, it's gathered in late June or early July when the sap is running. It's customary before taking birch bark off of the trees to give a tobacco sacrifice to the trees as a respect and sort of being peaceful and being one with the trees. When we're making the baskets and when Ojibwe people had made the baskets, it was customary to never throw away any scraps or any of the pieces of the birch bark. Those would be either used to make jewelry and crafts, or the scraps could be used for fire, and if they weren't used at all, they would return them peacefully to the forest. And then the last tradition is that when making your first basket, the goal or the tradition is to always give your first basket that you make away to someone as sort of a respect and honor thing in the traditions and the history of these guys. Now we're going to talk about harvesting and the proper ways to do that. So the trees you want to find need to be 40 years or older or dead. And the reason behind this is that a tree that's 40 years or older can handle that bark being taken off of it in the proper way and not kill the tree. And then obviously trees that are a lot wider in width will give you a lot more of the birch bark to use. And then dead trees, as long as they have recently died and they're not laying down rotting, those can also still be used, and you can use a lot more off of those trees because you know that they're not going to come back to life. So when you are harvesting, you want to cut a long vertical line down the tree and then cut a T across that, and that'll give you the grip and the section to be able to pull that piece off. You only want to go like a half of an inch in, and be careful not to damage the inner bark. The inner bark of the tree is what protects it from pests and diseases, and so that's what's really important with harvesting, is to make sure you're doing it the right way so that the tree can heal itself and continue to live. And once you have created that section, you peel it away and you're ready to go. So the materials that you'll need to make a birch bark basket is obviously the birch bark, a knife to cut the tree, some sharp objects to punch the holes into it for when you weave your thread through, a heavy object to flatten it, and sometimes when you're flattening it you can soak it in water, and that'll make it a lot more bendable and pliable. And then traditionally they used spruce roots and moose hide pieces to for the thread to sew it all together. We're gonna just use string today, and then something to trace with. So back in the Ojibwe days, they would maybe use a piece of coal from their fire or something along those lines, or some sort of ink that they made. Today we'll just use a pencil. So this is how you prepare it. Once we get the birch bark, we'll scrape all the brown and reddish residue off the inside of it. We'll flatten it between two pieces of wood or two heavy objects, which are already done, so that they'll be ready for us to use today. And you can dampen them as you need to get them moldable. And then we'll design a trace onto the bark, whatever kind of basket you'd like to create. And then you cut the pattern out, bend it into shape, clamp the pieces down to avoid it from curling, punch the holes, and weave whatever threading you're going to use through, and then decorate it as you'd like, and you have your basket. So today's agenda, we are going to go out and look for the proper trees to harvest. We're going to gather the materials that we need to make these baskets. We'll prepare our birch bark a little bit. I've already done it a little bit in advance for us. And then we will make our own birch bark baskets, and then we'll figure out who you guys want to give those to and why, and then we'll do a little debriefing. Yes?
You said that we have to find trees that are over 40 years old. How would we be able to tell that they're over 40?
Right, so generally if you're going to harvest, like in today's day and age, if you're going to harvest from a birch bark tree, you want to be really sure that it's for sure 40 years older. And a good way to do that is wrapping your hands around it, and if you can't touch your elbows, then it should be good, depending on how long your arms are and stuff like that. But I mean, in any other way, the only way to really tell the age of the tree is to get a slice of it. But you just don't want to be taking at, little tiny trees that have just started blooming. So, good question. All right, let's go get started. Okay, so I got my whole family out here, and we are going to look at some of the trees that I have previously harvested to find some good examples of what are some good trees. So guys, as you can see with all three of these trees, they are all dead. They're all birch trees, and all of their diameters aren't super wide, but wide enough to get some good sections off of them. So what your guys' goal is for the next 10 minutes is I want you guys to wander around anywhere on our property and find some good examples of some birch trees that we could harvest from in the spring. All right, 10 minutes starts now.
All right.
Did you find a tree?
I found a tree.
Okay, so this tree looks wide enough. Wrap your arms around it. Let's see how wide it is. That's a big tree.
That is a big tree. I can barely touch my hands.
So this tree would be a perfect candidate because it's 40 years or older, and if you took a section from it and did it properly, it would still be able to live for a very long time.
Awesome.
Is this wide enough?
I don't think so. Those ones look a little bit too small to take it from. There are some trees around me that I see that would be great candidates. You guys find one?
This looks good.
Maybe if you were able to get up there really high where you could get a good section off of it. Because it looks a little bit like it's been damaged maybe in the past.
How about on that other tree right there?
Right here?
Can you put your arms around it?
Well, I mean, I'm not a really good example of that.
Oh, he loves trees.
I love trees.
Those are good examples.
Yeah.
But the best examples are dead trees that have just recently died that still have really good bark on them, because then you won't damage it and you get to use bark from a tree that is going to rot otherwise.
So what about this log over here that's been harvested for cutting for fire?
That would be probably a perfect log. It looks like it's already peeling up too, and it's a good section.
It's
So
wide.
that would be a really good piece to use for a basket. Good job. Okay, now we're gonna go on a little family walk to go see what other trees we can find around our area that would be good candidates for birch baskets. Okay.
Peeling off.
Well, we found another cluster of some really good trees that we could use here.
Yep.
And a lot of the bark is already peeling off. So yes, those would be great examples. Good job, Anthony.
Perfect.
Mom found another tree that would be an awesome candidate.
It's a big one.
Now that everyone has a piece of birch bark, we have all of our supplies, and I've got a template for you guys. We are going to make our own baskets. So I'm gonna set this up so I can help you.
Awesome.
Cut all this
Bam.
off.
I'll start because
Yep, I'm gonna start with the template.
Okay. So you want to try to find the best spot. Yeah, that's probably the best spot.
Mhm.
Yes. And trace it out. And once it's all traced out, then we can talk about what needs to be folded, what needs to.
Did these already get scraped?
Yep. So these have already been scraped and flattened, and everything that needed to be done to them done. Normally, when you pull it off the tree, it's gonna be rounded like this, and so you have to get it flattened and scrape the inner parts out of it so that it's ready for the basket.
What about the wetting of it? What does that do again?
It makes it more bendable and moldable. For these baskets that we're doing today, we're making a very square shape, so it shouldn't be super hard to do that shape. But if you soak them for a really long time and get them kind of more
Easier to
pliable,
work with.
then you can make more of those round baskets or different shapes like that.
Use the lighter for the ends.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty fascinating that they could use these to carry water and,
Make canoes.
right,
Full-blown canoes.
That's
unbelievable. I wonder what they use to
For the structure of
connect the pieces. Like, I mean, obviously you didn't harvest one piece for the whole canoe, so I wonder how they stitched them together, if they used a tar, or, you know what I mean, something
Right,
to.
to like seal the
Yeah,
edges.
yeah.
So
Use
that-
No, I bet you they did find whole pine tree or whole birch trees and then peeled the whole tree.
Well, it looks like they have a
Pretty
bigger
big.
piece right there.
Like he
That's
did
what I'm
that.
saying. It's huge. That's
So
from
if
that's
you
from a whole
could
long
find
tree.
a really, really good tree that didn't have a bunch of knots in it and was wide and was big, and you cut it right, and you could
I
maybe.
think that's what he's doing there.
I think so. I think that's kind of the
And
idea
that right
behind
there
it.
will not ruin that tree.
No. Of making the baskets is cleaning up and returning the non-used bark either to crafts, which Mom has already done with her napkin holders, or we can use them for fire, or we will peacefully return the pieces to the woods.
To the earth.
To the earth for fertilizer, correct.
They're all little
And you can use your baskets to collect all your scraps. Well, that's all I got for you guys today. We'll stay and help Dad finish his basket. But I want to leave you guys with a thought, of thinking of that person that would be, it would be meaningful to give them this basket knowing that you put so much time and effort into making this with your own bare hands. And think of someone who it could really help and touch, especially in the time we are in right now, with everything going on. But I hope you enjoyed our little lesson on
We had a lot of
preparing
fun.
and making birch bark baskets.
good time.
And see you next time.